Senator Corker.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was in a great meeting with Senator King just a few minutes ago, and Senator Markley, actually, and I'm glad to be here finally. I'm sorry to be here late. I want to thank you,
Senator. It's not.
want to thank you for your service, and I hope you still feel this is the job that you have lived for in life to be in.
In all fairness, it is. So thank you for giving me the opportunity.
I'm glad you're in it, and thank you for being here. Somebody in the administration, either yesterday or the day before, said that that the President's tax reform plan will be offset on a static basis every year of the budget window. That was a statement coming out of the White House yesterday, and I just wondered if you would affirm that.
Yeah, I think that's consistent, at least, Senator. I'm not familiar with that exact statement, but I think it's consistent with some of the discussions we've had here earlier today about the assumptions that we made in this budget. When we get accused, as you probably heard, about double counting, the assumptions we made with this was that the changes in things like the deductions and the exemptions and the loopholes would result in a tax plan that was revenue neutral. I had to make some assumptions early on, right?
Yeah.
There's only three.
Yeah.
I assumed that increased the budget, the deficit, decreased the deficit, or kept it the same.
Yeah.
So we assumed it was right down the middle, kept it the same. So that is how we pay for the tax proposals that we had to assume.
Yeah.
And then we do take the benefits of dynamic growth through the 3% in order to generate new revenues to the Treasury.
But the actual policy that will be put in place, I mean, the way you put the budget together was that the tax reform package would be static.
Correct.
On a static scoring.
Would be deficit neutral.
Would be deficit neutral.
Yes, sir.
And that seems to be consistent with a White House official yesterday. I don't know who
And
it
that's
was that said that. So it sounds like the tax policy that they're planning to put in place would be revenue neutral in every year over the next 10 years, and that's consistent actually with what you've put in the budget. Is that
Keeping in
correct?
mind, Senator, we have to make, in fact, I didn't even realize this till I started looking at the job. We will start the 2019 budget now. That's how much lead time you have to do when you're writing a budget. The agencies are already starting, so there's a great amount of lead time, so you have to make certain assumptions. And when we started to make assumptions about the tax policy, all we had to go off was a single piece of paper that laid out our principles.
Right.
So the ultimate bill probably can and will look different than that, but the assumptions we made were along the lines of what you just laid out.
Well, it sounds like, I mean, I'm just repeating again, it sounds like the budget proposal that you had to work on, and again, you started way back as soon as you came into office. This year, you'll start even way more in advance of that, but it sounds like that's consistent with what White House officials are saying the actual tax reform bill is going to say, and that is it's going to be revenue neutral on a static basis.
That I'm not aware of. The discussions are going. I know that Secretary Mnuchin has taken the lead on the discussions in the House. He may have met with various senators, and well, in fact, I assume that he probably has. So I have no idea where we are in that process. I know that when we had to lock in our numbers, we made that assumption. I don't think that's any indication as to what the final bill will actually look like.
So
as I mentioned before, I don't mean to cut you off.
Okay.
We can't make those assumptions again next year. If I'm sitting here next year, we'll have more details on what the budget looks like.
Of course, and I listened to the exchange you had with Senator Kane, and I know that the word was used, cuts for Medicaid, and I would like to use the word that, you know, certainly with all of our entitlement programs, we need to use the word reform to make sure that people actually benefit from the services that are taking place there and do so in a more efficient way so that these programs are around in the future. I would just editorial comment-wise say that I do hope in the 2019 budget that you're able to convince the administration to actually begin looking at Social Security and Medicare as a component, because if you leave that much off the table, it's very difficult, as you know, to solve our nation's fiscal issues, and you and I both know we can deal with that issue appropriately and yet not do anything to in any way damage or harm the people that are currently on those programs. So I look forward to working with you, and I hope that you're able to alter opinions over the course of the next period of time, and that's why I'm so glad you're in this position. I would like just one final question asked. Yesterday, both you and Secretary Mnuchin, who I also appreciate working with, said Congress will need to raise the debt limit sooner than expected. I know that administrations typically play this game with us, you know, to give some leeway. It always is X, and then we move it up to Y so that, you know, there's a little leeway in the event we don't raise the debt ceiling. That may not be the case here. I'm just telling you what has happened in the past. Sure. You've experienced that. What has changed?
I think in talking with Secretary Mnuchin, he and I had about an hour-long meeting Monday, Tuesday, the whole week starts to run together, that the receipts were coming in a little bit more slowly than he anticipated when he gave his last letter to Congress. I think the last letter he sent, and I hate to butcher this, but I think it said he expected the debt ceiling to be reached about sometime in early September. And I think now it's moved a couple weeks in advance, and he may be giving additional guidance on that out of Treasury shortly. And I think that's consistent with his testimony yesterday.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.